Football is officially back, Lions fans. And now that we've all had a chance to catch our breath after that wild 16-14 preseason opener loss in Cincinnati, it's time to dig into what actually matters. Because here's the truth about preseason football. The final score means basically nothing. But what happens on individual representatives means everything. So let's separate the standouts from the question marks and figure out exactly what Detroit learned from night one. Let's start with the man of the hour, running back Jacob Sailors, because this guy did not just show up, he arrived. 8 carries, 55 yards, including a long run of 27 yards that had Lions fans buzzing on social media in real time. But Sailors wasn't done there. He also led the entire team in receptions, hauling in 3 catches for 28 yards. That's a legitimate all-around performance from a guy who's spent his short career buried on the depth chart behind bigger names. Remember, this is a running back room that lost David Montgomery and still has Jahmyr Gibbs. That's right, Jahmyr Gibbs, firmly entrenched as the workhorse. Sailors simply never had a real path to touches before now. But with Detroit's backfield depth genuinely thin behind Gibbs and other backs banged up, Sailors turned his opportunity into the loudest statement of the entire night. If there's one player who fundamentally changed his roster outlook in a single preseason game, it's him. Now let's talk about the trenches, because Detroit's defensive front looked genuinely scary at times. Alim McNeill wasted zero time reminding everybody why the Lions are counting on him, notching a sack almost immediately once he checked into the game. And look, McNeill's intensity isn't some manufactured hype. Head coach Dan Campbell has said it publicly multiple times now. This guy's passion and effort level are completely real, not an act, and when a player backs that reputation up with actual production, that's when the whole fan base falls in love. Right alongside him, edge rusher Ahmed Hassanein was an absolute menace all night. And if you caught our other coverage, you already know he delivered on a promise he made to his wife and his coaches all week, sacking Joe Burrow on the very first defensive snap of the game and finishing with 2 total sacks. Before this game, there were legitimate questions about whether Hassanein's camp buzz was just talk. Not anymore. He backed it up on the brightest stage available in August. But here's a name that deserves way more attention than it's currently getting. Defensive lineman Eric O'Neill. This guy flew completely under the radar throughout training camp, and then went out and was arguably one of the most impactful players on the entire defensive front on Thursday night. He got a big hit on Joe Burrow, and he came up with a huge tackle for loss in the fourth quarter. A lot of his early snaps were likely a byproduct of Aiden Hutchinson being held out for the night, since Detroit wisely kept its true stars in street clothes. But when the opportunity presented itself, O'Neill seized it, and alongside rookie Skylar Gilhoward, who also flashed an extended run, Detroit's defensive line depth is looking a lot more encouraging than it did heading into camp. We also need to shout out cornerback Nick Whiteside, who's quietly been building real buzz throughout camp, with Dan Campbell himself talking him up before this game. Whiteside backed up the hype with a solid, if unspectacular, performance, doing a nice job shadowing Cincinnati's top receiver early and staying in good coverage position on the very play where Hassanein got his first sack. Nothing flashy, but steady, smart cornerback play, exactly what Detroit need from a depth piece given everything else going on at that position. And that brings us to the elephant in the room, because this is where things get genuinely tough to talk about. Detroit's cornerback room has been absolutely gutted by circumstances outside anyone's control, and the timing of this preseason opener made that reality impossible to ignore. Ennis Rakestraw, Detroit's 2024 second-round pick, left the game with a significant shoulder injury after getting low to make a tackle. And while he reportedly walked off under his own power, it's yet another frustrating setback for a corner who simply cannot stay on the field since entering the league. And on the very same day, we got confirmation that Terrion Arnold, Detroit's first-round pick from that same 2024 draft class, has officially signed with the Seattle Seahawks, the reigning Super Bowl champions, following his release from the Lions back in June amid felony charges out of Florida. Think about that for a second. Detroit's top 2 picks from the 2024 draft class, both cornerbacks, and neither one is currently a stable, productive piece of this defense. One is now suiting up for the team that just won it all, and the other can't stay healthy long enough to prove what he can do. That's a brutal pill for this franchise to swallow, and it puts even more pressure on guys like Whiteside and veteran Rock Yasin to hold this cornerback room together. Now let's shift to the offensive side of the ball, because not everything was rosy there either. Wide receiver Isaac T. has been a genuine source of concern throughout camp, and honestly, most Lions fans expected a big third-year leap from him this season. That leap has not shown up yet. T. was actually a bit of a surprise inclusion in this game in the first place, given his considered one of Detroit's top 3 receivers behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. And when he did get his opportunity, the results weren't pretty. He had a catchable ball go right off his hands, which turned directly into an interception for the Bengals. To be fair, this isn't some catastrophic red flag on its own. Every receiver drops a ball occasionally. But when you connect it to the broader pattern we've heard about from camp all summer, it starts to look less like an isolated incident and more like a genuine trend worth monitoring closely as final roster cuts approach. Quarterback Luke Altmaier, on the other hand, deserves real credit for his approach given the circumstances. Yes, he threw multiple interceptions, and yes, the stat line wasn't pretty on paper. But context matters enormously here. This is an undrafted rookie who hadn't practiced with these specific teammates in weeks, thrown into a completely unfamiliar situation, forced to run an offense with backups and third stringers who also haven't gotten meaningful practice representatives together. That's an enormously difficult ask for any young quarterback, let alone one making his professional debut. And by most accounts, Altmaier actually looked sharper and more composed than several of the forgettable quarterbacks who cycled through Detroit's roster in the earlier years of the Dan Campbell era, guys who, frankly, some fans are struggling to even remember by name anymore. His first real completion of the night was a nice, confident throw down the sideline, and he showed real command directing the offense down the field on that opening drive before the interception happened. Given everything working against him tonight, that's a performance worth being encouraged by, not discouraged by. There's also an important injury note to track. Running back Eno Benjamin, a guy Detroit is genuinely counting on for depth in that thin backfield, left the game with an injury of his own. The good news is Dan Campbell downplayed it afterward, indicating it's not considered a long-term concern. Still, with Detroit's running back room already thin behind Gibbs, every single ding and tweak in that room matters more than it normally would, and it's a situation worth watching closely as the week progresses. So, stepping back and looking at the big picture here, what do we actually know after Game 1? The good clearly outweighs the bad. You've got legitimate breakout momentum from Jacob Saylors, continued dominance from Alim McNeil, a statement game from Ahmed Hassanein, a genuine surprise performance from Eric O'Neill, and encouraging depth signs from Nick Whiteside. On the concerning side, you've got Isaac T. searching for consistency, Ennis Rakestraw dealing with yet another injury, and the sobering reality of watching Detroit's former first-round cornerback sign with a team that just won the Super Bowl. And overall, compare this to last year's disastrous preseason opener against the Chargers in the Hall of Fame game, where Detroit got run over from start to finish. This year's game was a classic, competitive, back-and-forth preseason battle. That's real, tangible progress, even in a game where the box score says Detroit lost. That's the full breakdown from Detroit's preseason opener, Lions fans. Plenty to be genuinely excited about, a couple of real concerns worth tracking, and a cornerback situation that's going to require some patience and some faith heading into final roster decisions. Let me know down in the comments who impressed you the most and who's got you worried heading into the next preseason game. And hey, if you're loving this kind of deep, honest Lions breakdown, we are so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers here on Detroit Scope, and I need every single one of you to help us cross that line. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.